Well, the the key fact about Obama is that he emerged after the disastrous Bush presidency. So there was the catastrophe of the Iraq War, and that was doubled by the catastrophe of the 2008 meltdown. And so the country was poised for a radical break with the past. And what could be a more radical break with the past than electing a black man as president? So Obama and his handlers, basically David Axelrod and David Plouffe, they turned the election into a morality tale. They stayed away from any issues because there was nothing to distinguish him on any issues from Hillary Clinton. There was nothing. You have to struggle when you read through the literature to find anything that distinguished the two of them. So issues was not going to win for Obama. He had to play the race card. And they turned the election, he and they both, they turned the election into a morality tale. And the morality tale was, there's obviously nothing egregiously wrong with Obama. He's a family man. He has a winning smile. He went to Harvard. There's nothing egregiously wrong with him. Therefore, if you don't vote for him, you must be a racist. That could be the only plausible explanation. And if you let your better angels guide you, you, of course, will vote for him because he's a nice guy. And the only thing that would deter you was the fact that he's black. That was how the whole election was cast. And therefore, elections are normally referenda on the candidates. This election turned into a referendum on the electorate. It was not whether he was qualified to be president, it was whether you were or weren't a racist. And so, as Obama says in the book, he was the ultimate Rorschach test in his memoir. He was the ultimate Rorschach test. You saw what you wanted to see in him. I found the funniest remark in everything I read in the subject, the one by David Plouffe, his campaign manager. Axelrod was his campaign strategist. Plouffe says, I quote it in a footnote in my book, he says, remarkably, Obama's race played no role whatsoever in the primary. It was the only role. There was no platform. There was nothing. He himself says, I was a blank slate. So that's, I think, what accounted for his victory. I'm not sure if I would call it structural. I would call it contingent. It was because of the Bush presidency. And of course, he had a second good fortune in terms of his quote unquote legacy of being sandwiched between Bush and Trump. So that was another stroke of luck for Mr. Obama. Otherwise, I think it is no conspiracy to say that, of course, from the day he got started in Chicago, he was surrounded by a lot of very wealthy families, like the Pritzker family. They vetted him. They were careful. You're not going to put somebody in power. You're not going to use your money to put somebody in power who is going to rock the boat. And he was very reassuring that whatever rhetoric that might occasionally go off key in order to get elected, he was their man. And he proved to be their man for his whole time in office. He was, as Cornel West put it, he was the black mascot of Wall Street.
Did you have any, like in 2008, did you have any positive feelings about the campaign? Did you think this might be some sort of positive turning point? Were you just totally skeptical from the start? Because I mean,
I don't like to claim prescience. No prophet for sure. I make quite a lot of political errors. But I had no expectation whatsoever because I saw who were the people supporting him.
Mhm.
These were completely establishment figures. And I give them that much credit to people in the establishment. They know how to size somebody up. They do. They're not stupid. They know how to size somebody up. And they were very cautious, confident. And if you had any doubts, all you had to do was look at his cabinet, all of his appointees. They were either holdovers from the Bush administration, like Robert Gates, who was appointed Secretary of Defense, or holdovers from the Clinton administration. It's a very funny thing. I never watched this ghastly program called Pod Bless America.
Pod Save America, I think it's called.
America,
Yeah.
whatever. And there's this character named John Favreau, or as he was known in the Obama years, Favs, F-A-V-S, the heartthrob. And once he was having a debate with somebody, I can't remember who it was, from the Clinton camp. I watched it once. It was like I don't know how I lit on it, but I ended up watching it. And he says, well, you have to remember, we had Iraq on our side because Obama didn't support the war in Iraq when the vote came, whereas Hillary did. And there are many things to say about that. Why Obama didn't vote for the war in Iraq, but I won't go through the details now. What struck me about that comment was Favreau made it out to be this is the fundamental difference between them. That's why Obama was Obama and Hillary lost the primary. And I thought to myself, yeah, the difference was so fundamental that when he got elected, who did he appoint Secretary of State? Hillary Clinton. The difference couldn't have been that fundamental if he chose her to be his chief foreign diplomat. So if you had any doubts, and I really did, I'm not a prophet. I just knew the type. I lived in Chicago at the time, and people would wear these from the Gold Coast. That's the richest area of Chicago. It's like our Upper East Side. And all of these people were wearing these buttons. I'm voting for Obama, or I love Obama, I, the heart, Obama. I'm thinking to myself, all right, more fake white liberals. And that was his constituency. So I had no illusions. I have very few illusions about people in politics, maybe because I've been disappointed so many times. I had some false hopes about Bernie Sanders, I'll acknowledge. But in general, I entertain very few, I harbor very few illusions, and Obama didn't surprise me. I know the type. I've met a lot of the Obama type in my day. So, and that's why I refuse to play along. People, there are a number of prominent historians who read that chapter in my book on Obama and were not happy with what I had to say.
Did they have any like substantive critiques that made you, change anything? Or like what exactly were the critiques? Was it just like reflexive, emotional kind of response, or what?
I said, I don't think he's very smart. So that becomes racist. Wasn't he the editor of Harvard Law Review? Blah, 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 blah. And I look at the record. I see no sign of an intelligence there. So that didn't go over. And then people thought I was too harsh on his terms of office. Actually, I have very little to say about policy because there's already a voluminous literature on the subject. I had nothing of any interest to add to it. I was more interested in Obama, the cultural phenomenon.